So in this video, we're going to continue working on the Honda CX500, and although this bike is a build on a budget for me, I'm not going to be spending a ton of money on it, but I am going to be showing you how to make some cool custom parts for whatever bike you're working on. So let's get into it. If you haven't seen the previous videos on this project, what we've done so far is we've cut the frame, we've installed a hoop with a custom inserted taillight, we've made a seat base, we've installed the foam and then shaped it to the seat shape that we want. But now the back end is looking nice and smart. It's time to tidy up this front end. As you can see here, the wiring is just all out. The gauges are the original gauges. This headlight was actually gifted to me by a friend. It's actually a 6-inch or 160mm headlight. It's not exactly my favorite style of headlight, but yet we're going to use it because it was gifted to me. And although I don't want to sound ungrateful because this headlight was actually given to me for this particular build, we will be replacing it with something higher quality. This is just for now, but I can tell you that if you do cheap out with your lighting, you will be replacing it. They're just not as bright, they don't last as long. They'll pretty much start fading in the sun, you'll have water getting inside things, it'll start rusting. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that has a box of parts which I've purchased, and I don't feel like throwing them away because I've spent money on them. They're just sitting there and I don't think I'll ever use them. And on that topic, that's exactly why I have a website dedicated to selling high value parts that aren't going to break the bank but will last you a lifetime of you owning the bike instead of having to purchase something 2 or 3 times. So my original design was going to be using these stainless bungs. I was going to have one on the side of the head like here, and then one on the actual bolt for the bottom triple clamp, and then have a joining piece made of probably stainless steel solid bar between the two and then weld them together. But then I came up with another idea. This is the design that I came up with for this particular headlight bracket. It's just this section here and these 2 little tails that hang out the side. It's going to make a lot more sense in a second, but these 2 holes here where my thumbs are, they're the actual pickup points, which is going to hold it onto the bike like that. And I'm going to make these brackets out of one flat bit of steel and make it as simple as possible to make so that you can do this at home. And just one other thing to mention, I have actually removed the horn. I'm probably going to relocate it. It used to sit around here somewhere. I might put it up like that, out of the way. I'm not too sure yet. We'll have to figure that after we make the bracket. And although I'm going to be using the ArcDroid robot to cut this, you could still use a jigsaw with a metal blade or even a handsaw with a metal blade will do the same thing. It's just going to take a little bit longer. And that's exactly what I did when I started building bikes. I did a couple of practice cuts first just to tweak a few of the settings on the ArcDroid, and also made a few measurement changes, and then the last one came out perfectly. I'm going to bend this with my pan brake, but if you have yourself an angle grinder, you can easily score the line with a grinder and bend it over the edge of a bench, or if you can grab yourself one of these guys, they go in a bench vise and they leave you a nice crisp line, perfect for lots of little projects like this. I can't wait to show you the next part that we build for this bike. You're going to love it, but before we get to that, I want to quickly put a tank liner inside this tank. If you intend on repainting your tank or even leaving the patina of the paint as it is, please put a tank liner inside your tank. I have lost a beautiful paint job because rust had built up on the inside and it let the fuel through and it bubbled one side of the tank completely, and now that beautiful paint job is destroyed and I can't do anything about it. It's a really easy process, but do follow the instructions to the T, and the first thing you add is the Aqua Clear and let the tank completely soak for a period of time, and then flush that out with clean water until it runs clear. And then you can add the Rust Blast and then rotate the tank, keeping it wet the entire time to get rid of all of the rust. This Rust Blast is amazing, I love it, it works really quick. Then you run that out with fresh water again until that runs clear. And the next step is making sure the tank is completely bone dry before you add the sealer. Just stir the sealer, pour that in, and then rotate the tank slowly until every single surface is covered. Just check to make sure everything is covered, and then you can pour out the excess and you are good to go. And if your bike has the filler cap retainer spring that's usually attached with a chain, you may as well coat that as well. Like I said, it's a super easy process. It doesn't take very long. Probably waiting for the tank to completely dry before you can actually add the liner is probably the longest time taken. Just make sure you use a high quality tank liner kit. You do not want that tank liner to come loose inside your tank. KBS is the product that I recommend. I'll leave a link in the description where you can check it out. These are the original CX500 side covers, and in the last video I reshaped the seat and redesigned it, and it's left a big Gary gap here at the top, and I just can't leave that alone. So I decided to come up with something custom and show you how to do it. Typically speaking, if this was a true to form cafe racer, I would probably remove the airbox, relocate the battery, and leave this area where the side covers are completely open. I don't want to do that on this build, and I certainly don't want to have to deal with the tuning issues you have when you remove airboxes on CV carbs, but the side covers are going to look pretty cool when they're finished. So this is a little bit more of an advanced way of making something for your motorcycle, and metal shaping is such a rewarding and satisfying process. I absolutely love it. If you want to give it a go, you don't have to spend a ton of money. All you really need is a shrinking stump that you can make yourself. Grab yourself a little sandbag like this, get yourself a nylon hammer, a planishing hammer, and possibly even an English wheel, and you can most definitely make what I'm making here. Or if you have yourself an old ball peen hammer or even a tow ball off a car, you could shape it up, clamp it in a vise, whichever way you want it, and use this as a planishing dolly so you can flatten out your metal. I'd probably make sure there's always something in between the two hammer heads. They are hardened steel, you don't want them to shatter, just keep that in mind. But in order for things to happen a lot faster and shape a lot quicker, you obviously will need power tools, and that's why I have a power hammer, I've got a pneumatic planishing hammer, as well as a shrinker stretcher and things of that nature. I'm using some brown paper over this wire buck so that everywhere where I need to pleat the paper to conform to the shape of the wire, I know that's where I need to shrink the metal so I can transfer that from the paper onto the metal. I've been metal shaping this one side panel for way too long now. I haven't even gotten to the second one, and I've made a pretty bad mistake, and I want to show you because it could potentially help you with yours if you're going to make one. The process with metal shaping is once you've made your wire buck, you want to put the wire buck in there and find out wherever there's a gap. And everywhere where the actual wire buck is touching the base metal, you just need to stretch those areas by hammering them down. And that's kind of what you're doing the whole time. And then your wire buck should be pretty uniform and touching the entire area. That's what I've been doing, but unfortunately I was working the material way too hard trying to get that, and as you can see, I've split the material. I could potentially weld this up and then grind it down and keep going, but I have been working this area for a very long time, and I feel like I'm just going to be splitting that even more if I continue. So I decided to get rid of that completely, and this is completely off camera, but I made another one and got it even closer. And I still feel like I've made the radius on the front too big because I've got the same situation where it's not touching in certain areas. I'm gonna have to work more areas to get it to go. So rather than remaking a third one and doing the same thing, I figured I'd try it a different way. So this time round, I'm going to use the little English wheel to begin the face of the curve, and then I'm going to use the nylon hammers to do the edges. I think that's a better approach. I certainly don't claim to be a professional metal shaper. In fact, I'm always making mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are your best lessons. So this is already working out way better after just a few minutes on the English wheel. As you can see here, all this section here is pretty much touching, just needs a little bit more tweaking, but this whole top area here is what needs to be curved. So I'll need to shrink that top section, as you can see there. I guess it's just a matter of looking at the wire buck that you've created, work out how much curve you really need. I'm so used to doing things that are way more curved than this, so I was a bit heavy-handed in the hammering. So I'm absolutely stoked with that. That was about 10 minutes on the English wheel and power hammer compared to the hours that I've spent on those two. and we haven't overworked the material either. There's still quite a few gaps in here that I've got to chase. However, the main shape is done and I think I can close those pretty quickly. So now that I made two identical side covers, a right and a left, this one I've put on the bike, and I started to lay out just a bit of a design that I had in mind. This could potentially be a cutout or even maybe metal shaping and invert it a little bit. Not too sure, that's something I've got to work on. These side covers are still oversized. There's a 10mm line all the way around the inside there, which I'm going to tip in and then make these a little bit slimmer than what they are. The first lot of diamonds didn't quite line up with the top of the panel, so I redid them again, and I think these diamonds are going to look so damn cool, especially when they match the seat upholstery when we get that done. So this is my new Metal Master bead roller from Heron Forbes that I haven't had very long, just enough time to get a bit of practice on and hopefully be able to make this part without making a mistake, because once you make a mistake with bead rolling, you can't really get it out. Once it's rolled, you can't unroll it. Here's a great example of when you make a mistake, you end up practicing a lot more than you anticipated. The outside border here, I ended up going right on the line when I was bead rolling, and I was wondering if it was going to be too tight. And guess what? It is. I'm going to try and rectify it without having to make another one. I don't know my chances. Fingers crossed. What I'm trying to achieve is just so this section here can be dropped. I can actually step this. So this is higher and this is lower, giving me that ability to then fit it into the panel that I've made. Okay, it's working so far so good. It may end up distorting it so badly that I'll just end up making another one. At this point, I don't know if I'm making it better or worse. So it's distorted it a bit, so I'll have to shape it back in. Looks like it's working. A little bit of manipulation, we should be able to get that to work. And now it's just a matter of finishing off the other one on the other side to match the first one that I made. And I can tell you this has taken way longer than I first anticipated, just to get them as perfect as I possibly can. So here's the two side covers side by side, left and right, as identical twins as you can get when you're making things by hand. I've spent absolutely hours on these to try and get them perfect. I still need to make the insert for the other one and also the bracketry to go on the bike. I'll show you in a second what one looks like on the bike. I'm absolutely stoked with it. I couldn't be happier. Let me know in the comments if you like it or you hate it. But I do have a question for you. What is a product you've purchased for your motorcycle that you absolutely love and you'd recommend? Leave it in the comments and let me know. So the reason I've left this little area here blank is because when it gets painted up, I think I might put Honda or CX500 written there. I think it'll look really smart. And if you've enjoyed this one, I have a ton of videos showing you every aspect of building a motorcycle, so go and check them out.